2 days had passed since the dining hall incident. Word had spread through the academy like wildfire. Everyone knew about the coming confrontation between Vorthok and the human girl. Some cadets placed bets on how quickly it would end. Others wondered if the teachers would step in to stop it. Hannah went about her daily routine as if nothing had changed. She attended classes, completed her assignments, and ate her meals alone. But now, wherever she went, she felt eyes watching her. "Cadets," whispered as she passed. Some looked at her with pity, others with curiosity. A few seemed almost eager to see what would happen. In combat theory class, Professor Xylith stood at the front of the room, his forearms moving gracefully as he explained different fighting styles. He was from a peaceful world where violence was rare, but he had studied war for centuries. His knowledge was vast, and his teaching methods were respected throughout the galaxy. "Today we will discuss the various combat techniques developed by different species," Professor Xylith said, his voice soft but clear. "Each world has created its own approach to warfare based on its unique environment and biology." He gestured to a holographic display that showed warriors from dozens of different planets. The Zephyrians rely on their natural armor and overwhelming strength. The Vortani use their ability to phase through solid matter. The Kolari can predict their enemies' movements through telepathy. Vorthok sat in the front row, his massive frame barely fitting in the standard desk. He nodded approvingly as Professor Xylith described his people's fighting methods. "The key to understanding combat," the professor continued, "is recognizing that there is no single superior approach. Every technique has strengths and weaknesses. Every warrior has limitations." A cadet named Tay raised his hand. He was small and nervous, from a low-gravity world where people were thin and fragile. "Professor, what about humans? What fighting style do they use?" Professor Zyllis's expression grew thoughtful. "Human combat techniques are interesting. They do not rely on natural weapons or special abilities. Instead, they focus on adaptability, endurance, and the use of tools." "Tools," Vorthok said with a snort. "Any species can use tools." "What makes humans special?" "Their willingness to endure pain," Professor Xylith replied. "They can continue fighting even when severely injured." "That sounds like desperation, not skill," Vorthok said loudly. Several cadets laughed. From her seat in the back of the room, Hannah looked up from her notes. She had been quietly writing down everything the professor said, but now she was listening. "More carefully," Professor Vorthok continued, "surely you do not mean to suggest that human techniques are worth studying. They are clearly inferior to the methods developed by true warrior species." Professor Xylith's 4 eyes blinked slowly. "I would be careful about making such assumptions, Cadet Vorthok. Human combat doctrine has been tested in many conflicts. Against what enemies?" Vorthok demanded. "Other humans, they've never faced real warriors." "That is not entirely accurate," the professor said carefully. "But perhaps we should move on to other topics." "No," Vorthok said, standing up. "I think this is important. We have a human in our class. Why not ask her directly?" He turned to look at Hannah. "Tell us, Softskin, what makes human fighting so special?" The entire class turned to stare at Hannah. She set down her pen and looked back at them calmly. "I am not sure what you want me to say," she replied. "I want you to explain why we should respect human combat techniques. I want you to tell us what makes your people dangerous." Hannah was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "We adapt." "Adapt to what?" "To whatever is trying to kill us." Vorthok laughed. "Everything is trying to kill everything. That is what combat is about." "No," Hannah said, her voice still calm. "On most worlds, the dangerous things are other thinking beings. Wars between armies, fights between individuals. On Earth, everything is trying to kill you all the time." "Explain," Professor Xylith said, sounding genuinely curious. "The weather can kill you. The animals can kill you. The plants can kill you. The air can kill you if you are not careful. The water can kill you. Even the ground can kill you if you are in the wrong place." "That sounds like a horrible place to live," Tay said quietly. "It is home," Hannah replied. "And it teaches you things." "What things?" Vorthok asked, his voice mocking. That strength is not about being bigger or faster or having better weapons. Strength is about lasting longer than whatever is trying to kill you. Endurance, Professor Zilith said, nodding. Now the human concept of persistence hunting. What is persistence hunting? Another cadet asked. It is when you chase something until it dies from exhaustion, Hannah explained. You do not need to be faster than your prey. Just need to keep following it until it cannot run anymore. That sounds cruel, Tay said. It is efficient, Hannah replied, and it works. Vorthok slammed his hand on his desk, making a sound like breaking stone. Enough of this. You talk about persistence and endurance as if they matter. But when we face each other tomorrow, all your endurance will not save you from being crushed in the first few seconds. Maybe, Hannah said. There is no maybe about it. I am twice your size and 3 times your strength. My armor can stop any weapon in the Academy arsenal. My people have been warriors for 10,000 years. And yet you feel the need to keep telling everyone how strong you are, Hannah observed. The class went silent. Vorthok's crest flared with anger. What did you say? I said you talk about your strength a lot. If you are as powerful as you claim, why do you need to keep proving it? Because there are always new challenges, Vorthok snarled. Always weak creatures who think they can stand against the strong. Is that what you think I am doing? Anning? Against you, are you not? Hannah considered this. I am just trying to graduate. Then you should withdraw from the exam. Save yourself the humiliation. I cannot do that. Why not? Because I made a promise. To whom? To my world. To my people. To myself. Vorthok stood up, his full height making him tower over the seated cadets. Your promises will not protect you. Your people are not here to help you. And you are about to learn what happens when soft creatures try to play with predators. Maybe, Hannah said again. Stop saying maybe. Say yes. Admit that you are going to lose. I will not admit that. Then you are a fool. Vorthok's frustration was obvious. He had expected her to be afraid, to back down, to beg for mercy. Instead, she remained calm and spoke in simple, direct sentences that somehow made him angrier. Fine, he said finally. Tomorrow, in the combat exam, I will show you exactly what happens to fools who challenge their betters. I look forward to it, Hannah said. The way she said it made several cadets shift uncomfortably in their seats. There was something in her, tone that they had not heard before, not fear or anger or excitement, something else, something that made them wonder if they had been wrong about the quiet human girl. Class ended a few minutes later. Cadets filed out, talking excitedly about the coming exam. Hannah remained in her seat, reviewing her notes. She had written down everything Professor Zilith had said about combat techniques, but she had added her own observations in the margins. Professor Zilith approached her desk. Cadet Kim, may I speak with you? Of course, Professor. Are you certain? About this confrontation with Vorthok, it is not too late to request a different opponent. Hannah looked up at him. Would you respect me if I did that? I would understand. That is not what I asked. Professor Zilith's 4 eyes studied her carefully. No, I suppose I would not respect you, but I would prefer that you remain alive and healthy. So would I, Hannah said. But some things are more important than being safe, such as proving that Earth did not send a weakling to represent them. Professor Zilith was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I have seen the reports from your world. I know what humans are capable of. But Vorthok is exceptionally strong, even by Zephyrian standards. I know, and you still intend to face him. I do. Why? Hannah packed her notes into her bag and stood up. Because someone has to show the galaxy that humans do not back down from. Fights, even fights we might lose. She walked toward the door, then paused and looked back. Besides, she said with a slight smile, I might not lose. Then she was gone, leaving Professor Zilith alone with his thoughts, and a growing sense that tomorrow's exam would be far more interesting than anyone expected. The Academy's combat arena was built into the heart of the station. A massive circular chamber with walls of reinforced metal and energy shields. The floor was covered in a special material that could absorb impact and prevent serious injury. during training matches, but today, the safety protocols were turned off. This was the final exam, and real combat required real danger. Hundreds of cadets filled the viewing stands, their excited voices echoing off the curved walls. Teachers sat in a separate section, watching with professional interest. Some held data tablets, ready to record the performance of their students. Others simply watched with the careful eyes of experienced warriors. Commander Rexton stood at the center of the arena floor, his uniform crisp and his expression serious. He was a veteran of dozens of battles, a man who had seen war on 20 different worlds. His presence commanded respect from every cadet in the academy. "Today marks the final combat examination," he announced, his voice carrying clearly through the arena's sound system. "Each cadet will face a randomly selected opponent in single combat. No weapons beyond standard academy equipment. No outside assistance. Victory is achieved through surrender, unconsciousness, or inability to continue." The cadets in the stands cheered. Many had been waiting months for this moment. The chance to prove themselves in real combat, to show the galaxy that they were worthy of becoming officers. "The first match," Commander Rexton continued, "will be between Cadet Vorthok of Zephyria and Cadet Hannah Kim of Earth." The cheering grew louder. This was the fight everyone wanted to see. The unstoppable warrior against the unknown human, strong against the weak, the inevitable against the impossible. Vorthok entered the arena through the eastern gate, his crystal armor gleaming under the bright lights. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never lost a fight, as people gathered in the stands and chanted his name in their musical language. He raised his arms to acknowledge them, then turned to face his opponent's entrance. Hannah entered through the western gate, wearing standard academy combat gear. She looked small and fragile compared to the massive Zephyrian. Her equipment was basic: light armor, a training sword, and a shield. Nothing fancy or special. Nothing that would give her an advantage against a creature with natural weapons and armor. The contrast was striking. Vorthok stood 8 feet tall, his body covered in crystalline plates that sparkled like diamonds. Hannah barely reached his chest, her human form looking delicate and vulnerable. The crowd fell silent as the two fighters approached the center of the arena. "This is not a fair fight," Tay whispered to the cadet sitting next to him. "She is going to be hurt badly." "Maybe that is the point," his companion replied. "Maybe this is meant to show humans that they do not belong here." Commander Rexton looked at both fighters. "You ready?" "Ready," Vorthok said, his voice booming. Across the arena, "Ready," Hannah said quietly. "Then begin." Vorthok immediately charged forward, his massive feet pounding against the arena floor. His strategy was simple: use his size and strength to overwhelm his opponent before she could react. His crystal fists could punch through steel plates. His armor could deflect energy weapons against a small human with basic equipment. The fight should be over in seconds. Hannah did not move. She stood perfectly still, watching him approach her. Grip on her sword was relaxed. Her stance was balanced, but not aggressive. She looked almost casual, as if she were waiting for a friend rather than facing a charging warrior. The crowd held its breath. Vorthok was almost upon her. His fist was raised, ready to deliver a blow that would end the match immediately. The human girl seemed frozen with fear. Then, at the last possible moment, Hannah moved. She stepped aside with fluid grace, her movement so quick and precise that Vorthok's massive fist hit nothing but air. Momentum carried him forward, and he stumbled slightly as he tried to turn around. But Hannah was already moving again. As Vorthok passed her, she struck with her sword, the blade finding a gap between his armor plates. The strike was not meant to cause serious damage, but the crowd gasped as they saw a thin line of crystal dust fall from where her weapon had made contact. Vorthok spun around, his eyes wide with surprise. Impossible.
Ow.
Nothing can damage Zephyrian. Armor. Your armor is very strong, Hannah agreed, circling him slowly. But everything has weak points. You got lucky, Vorthok snarled, charging again. This time he was more careful, his movements controlled and precise. He threw a series of punches designed to corner her, to force her into a position where she could not escape. But each attack found only empty air. Hannah moved like water, flowing around his strikes with an economy of motion that was almost beautiful to watch. The crowd was no longer cheering. They were watching in fascination as the small human avoided every attack from the massive warrior. She made it look easy, as if she were dancing rather than fighting. "How is she doing that?" a cadet whispered. "She is reading his movements," Professor Zillith observed from the faculty section. "She is not reacting to his attacks. She is predicting them." Indeed, Hannah seemed to know where Vorthok would strike before he did. She moved with the calm confidence of someone who had faced this type of opponent before. Her breathing was steady. Her movements were efficient. She showed no signs of fear or exhaustion. Vorthok, on the other hand, was beginning to breathe hard. His species was built for quick, devastating attacks, not prolonged fights. His armor was heavy, and the constant charging and turning was taking its toll. "Stand still and fight," he demanded, throwing another punch that missed by inches. "I am fighting," Hannah replied, her voice calm. "You are running. You are afraid to face me directly. I am not afraid. I am being smart." This seemed to infuriate Vorthok even more. He roared and launched himself at her with both fists, putting all his strength into a double attack that should have been impossible to avoid. Hannah dropped low, rolled between his legs, and came up behind him. As he turned to face her, she struck again with her sword, this time targeting a joint in his knee armor. The blade found its mark, and Vorthok's leg buckled slightly. "My turn," Hannah said. What happened next shocked everyone in the arena. Instead of continuing to avoid his attacks, Hannah went on the offensive. She moved in close, too close for Vorthok to use his reach advantage. Her sword work was precise and relentless. Each strike aimed at a specific weak point in his armor. Vorthok tried to grab her, but she was too fast. He tried to step back, but she followed him. For the first time in the fight, he was the one being forced to react instead of attack. "This is impossible," he gasped, his armor now showing multiple scratches and stress fractures. "Humans are supposed to be weak." "We are weak," Hannah agreed, landing another precise strike. "That is why we have to be smart." She moved around him like a storm, her attacks coming from every angle. Vorthok spun desperately, trying to keep up with her, but she was always one step ahead. His heavy armor, once his greatest advantage, now felt like a burden. The crowd watched in stunned silence as their champion was systematically dismantled by the small human. This was not the quick victory they had expected. This was something else entirely. "She is not just beating him," Commander Rexton observed quietly. "She is teaching him." Every strike demonstrates a different weakness in his technique. "But how?" another teacher asked. "What does she know exactly where to hit?" "'Cause she has fought creatures like him before," Commander Rexton replied. "Maybe not exactly like him, but similar enough. Earth is a world where you learn to fight everything, or you die." In the arena, Vorthok was slowing down. His breathing was labored, his movements sluggish. The constant attacks had worn him down, and his armor was now covered in cracks and scratches. "Surrender," Hannah said, her sword point resting against a particularly vulnerable spot on his neck. "You fought well, but this is over." "Never," Vorthok snarled, trying to grab her, but his reflexes were too slow. Hannah easily avoided his desperate lunge and struck him in the solar plexus with the pommel of her sword. The impact sent him staggering backward, gasping for breath. "The match is over," Commander Rexton announced. "Victory goes to Cadet Kim." Arena erupted in confused noise. Some cadets cheered, others argued about what they had just witnessed. Many simply sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had seen. Hannah helped Vorthok to his feet, her expression respectful. "You are very strong," she said. "On most worlds, strength like yours would be enough." "But not on Earth," Vorthok said, his voice bitter. "No," Hannah agreed. "Not on Earth." As the medical team arrived to check on both fighters, the crowd began to disperse. But the conversations continued long into the night. Human girl had done something impossible. She had defeated a warrior who should have been unbeatable, and she had made it look easy. The medical bay was quiet except for the soft hum of healing machines. Vorthok lay on a table designed for large species, his crystal armor removed, and his injuries being treated by automated systems. The damage was not life-threatening, but his pride was wounded more deeply than his body. Dr. Yuna, the Academy's chief medical officer, studied her readings with interest. She was a small, elderly woman from a peaceful world where medicine was considered the highest art. She had treated injuries from 100 different species, but she had never seen anything quite like this. Fascinating, she murmured, looking at the scans of Vorthok's armor. The human struck with surgical precision. Every hit was calculated to cause maximum effect with minimum force. She cheated somehow, Vorthok said bitterly. No one can move that fast without enhancement. The scans show no signs of artificial enhancement, Dr. Yuna replied. Her strength and speed are within normal human parameters. What made her effective was not power, but technique. Technique, Vorthok repeated, the word bitter in his mouth. The way she moved, the way she predicted your attacks, the precision of her strikes. This was not natural talent. This was training, extensive, brutal training. Commander Rexton entered the medical bay, his expression thoughtful. Behind him walked Professor Xylith, who had been reviewing combat footage from the match. How is our patient? Commander Rexton asked. Physically fine, Dr. Yuna replied. His armor absorbed most of the impact. The human was very careful not to cause permanent damage. Could have hurt me worse, Vorthok admitted grudgingly. Much worse, Professor Xylith agreed. I have been studying the combat footage. She had dozens of opportunities to deliver crippling strikes, but chose not to. She was demonstrating control, not attempting to destroy you. Commander Rexton nodded. That matches what I observed. Cadet Kim was teaching a lesson, not trying to win a war. What lesson? Vorthok asked. That strength without intelligence is just noise, Professor Xylith replied. That natural advantages mean nothing if you do not know how to use them properly. The commander pulled up a chair next to Vorthok's bed. Tell me, Cadet, what do you know about Earth? It is classified as a death world, Vorthok said. High gravity, toxic atmosphere for most species, dangerous wildlife. But the reports said humans were weak. The reports were incomplete, Commander, Rexton said. Earth is not just dangerous because of its environment. It is dangerous because everything on that world is trying to survive in conditions that would kill most galactic species within hours. Explain. Professor Xylith activated a holographic display showing Earth's surface. Human gravity is nearly TWIC, what most species consider normal. Their atmosphere has an oxygen content that is toxic to many life forms. Their weather systems are violent and unpredictable. But humans evolved there, Dr. Yuna added. They did not just survive in those conditions. They thrived. They became the dominant species on a world where everything else was trying to kill them. The wildlife alone, Commander Rexton continued, would be classified as extremely dangerous. On most worlds, predators that hunt in packs, venomous creatures, animals that can kill with a single bite or sting, and humans learn to hunt all of them. Vorthok was quiet, processing this information. But she is so small, so fragile-looking. A human. Females are often smaller than males, Professor Xylith explained. But they undergo the same survival training. Earth does not make exceptions based on size or gender. If you cannot survive, you die. What kind of training? Vorthok asked. Commander Rexton smiled grimly. Human military training includes survival in environments that would kill most galactic species. Desert survival where the temperature reaches levels that would cook most aliens. Arctic survival where the cold would freeze Zephyr and Crystal. Ocean survival where the pressure and salt water would dissolve many life forms. They train their soldiers to fight in every possible environment, Dr. Yuna added. Underground, underwater, in toxic atmospheres, in zero gravity, in crushing gravity. Wells, a human soldier must be prepared to fight anywhere. But most importantly, Professor Xylith said, they train to fight opponents who are bigger, stronger, faster, and better armed. Human military doctrine assumes that the enemy will have every possible advantage. How do they win? Vorthok asked. Being smarter, by lasting longer, by adapting faster than their enemies can react. Commander Rexton stood up. What you experienced today was not unusual human performance. It was standard human training applied to a new situation. Cadet Kim analyzed your fighting style, identified your weaknesses, and exploited them efficiently. She made it look easy. For her, it probably was easy. You fought exactly the way she expected you to fight. You used brute force, straightforward attacks, and relied on your natural advantages. That is precisely what human soldiers are trained to counter. Vorthok was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, "Are all humans like her?" "Worse," Commander Rexton said. "She is young and still learning. A fully trained human soldier would have ended that fight in seconds, not minutes. But she spared me. She was not trying to kill you. She was proving a point. The point being that Earth does not send weaklings to represent them in the galaxy." Dr. Yuna finished her examination and began putting away her equipment. "Your injuries will heal completely within a few days. But I suspect your perspective on humans will take longer to recover." "What do you mean? You spent months mocking Cadet Kim, calling her weak and soft? Now you know the truth. How does it feel to discover that you were completely wrong?" Vorthok did not answer immediately. Finally, he said, humbling, "Good Commander," Rexton said, "humility is the beginning of wisdom. And wisdom is what separates good officers from dead ones." As the medical staff finished their work, Vorthok found himself thinking about the fight, replayed every moment in his mind, analyzing what had happened. The human had not won through luck or trickery. She had won through superior skill and training. "Commander," he said as Rexton prepared to leave, "what happens now?" "Now you recover, complete your remaining exams, and hopefully graduate to become an officer in the Galactic Fleet." "Will I serve alongside humans?" "Very likely. Earth is expanding its presence in galactic affairs. Human officers and soldiers are being assigned to mixed species units throughout the fleet." "Are they all like her?" Commander Rexton paused at the door. "Cadet Vorthok, what you witnessed today was a human cadet, fresh from basic training, with minimal combat experience. She has never seen real war, never faced life or death situations, never fought for anything more important than a grade. She still defeated me easily. Yes, now imagine what a human soldier with 10 years of combat experience could do. Imagine what a human special forces operative could accomplish. Imagine what a human who had actually lived through the kind of training that Earth provides for its warriors." Vorthok felt a chill run through his crystal body. "I think I understand. I hope you do. No, because the galaxy is changing, and humans are going to be a major part of that change. The species that learn to respect them early will prosper. Those that continue to underestimate them will regret it." After everyone left, Vorthok lay alone in the medical bay, staring at the ceiling. He thought about all the times he had mocked the human girl, all the jokes he had made about her weakness. He felt foolish and ashamed. But more than that, he felt curious. If Hannah Kim was considered an average human, what were the exceptional ones like? What kind of warriors did a death world produce when it was trying to create? Soldiers rather than students. He suspected he would find out soon enough. The galaxy was vast, and if Earth was truly expanding its influence, he would likely encounter more humans in his career as an officer. The thought both excited and terrified him. Outside in the corridor, he could hear other cadets talking about. The fight word was spreading quickly through the academy. The human girl had defeated the unbeatable Zephyrian warrior. The weak had triumphed over the strong, but Vorthok now understood that the premise was wrong. Hannah Kim was not weak. But she was something far more dangerous. She was human. News of the fight spread through the academy like wildfire. By evening, every cadet, teacher, and staff member knew what had happened in the arena. The impossible had occurred. A human had defeated a Zephyrian warrior in single combat. In the dining hall that night, the atmosphere was completely different. Conversations were quieter, more thoughtful. Cadets who had laughed at Hannah just days before now watched her with new eyes. Some looked afraid, others seemed fascinated. Many appeared confused, as if their understanding of the universe had been shaken. Hannah sat at her usual table in the corner, eating her dinner in peace. For the first time in months, no one was whispering about her or pointing in her direction. The other cadets were too busy processing what they had witnessed to engage in their usual mockery. Tay approached her table hesitantly, carrying his own food tray. "May I sit here?" he asked quietly. Hannah looked up, surprised. "Of course." Tay sat down across from her, his thin frame trembling slightly. "I owe you an apology," he said. "For what?" "For laughing at you, for thinking you were weak, for believing that you did not belong here." "You are not the only one," Hannah replied mildly. "That does not make it right." Tay picked at his food nervously. "I have been thinking about what happened today. About what it means." "What do you think it means?" "That I know nothing about humans, that none of us do." Other cadets had begun to notice their conversation. Slowly, more students approached the table. Some sat down, others stood nearby, listening carefully. Within minutes, Hannah found herself surrounded by nearly 50 cadets, all waiting to hear what she would say. "Is it true," asked a cadet named Rena, "that Earth is really a death world?" "Depends on what you mean by death world," Hannah replied. "A world where most species cannot survive without artificial life support, then yes, it is true." "But you seem so normal," Tay said. "You do not look like you come from a dangerous place." Hannah smiled slightly. "What should I look like?" "Bigger. Stronger. More obviously dangerous." "Danger does not always look dangerous," Hannah said. "On Earth, the most venomous creatures are often small and colorful. The most deadly predators often appear harmless until they strike." A cadet from a desert world leaned forward. "Tell us about Earth. What is it really like?" Hannah set down her fork and considered the question. "Earth has every kind of environment you can imagine, and all of them can kill you. We have deserts where the sand reaches temperatures that would melt metal. We have forests where the trees produce toxins that can kill you if you breathe them. We have oceans full of creatures that can swallow a ship whole." "How do humans survive there?" Rena asked. "We adapt. We learn. We prepare for everything." "But you cannot prepare for everything," another cadet protested. "No," Hannah agreed. "But you can prepare for most things. And when you encounter something new, you can adapt quickly." "Is that what you did today?" Tay asked. "Adapted, partly. But mostly, I used training that every human child receives." "Every human child learns to fight like that?" Rena asked, sounding shocked. "Every human child learns to defend themselves against creatures that are bigger and stronger than they are. On Earth, if you cannot protect yourself, you die young." The cadets exchanged glances. This was far from the image of humanity they had been given. They had been told humans were weak, peaceful, technologically advanced, but physically inferior. "The reports we received said humans were not warriors," one cadet said. "We are not warriors in the way many species define the term," Hannah explained. "We do not have natural weapons or armor. We're not built for combat the way Vortex people are." "Then how did you defeat him so easily?" "I did not defeat him easily. I defeated him efficiently. There is a difference." "Explain." Hannah thought for a moment. "Vorthok is very strong and very tough. In a direct contest of strength, he would win every time. But combat is not just about strength. It is about intelligence, endurance, adaptability, and the willingness to do whatever is necessary to survive. And humans have all of those qualities. We have two. Our world demands it." A senior cadet named Kai, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. "What you are describing sounds like a world of constant warfare." "Not warfare," Hannah corrected. "Survival. There is a difference." "What difference?" "Warfare is when thinking beings fight each other for resources or territory or ideology. Survival is when you fight the world itself just to stay alive another day. And Earth requires that kind of fight. Every day. Every hour. Sometimes every minute." The cadets were quiet, absorbing this information. Many came from worlds where life was comfortable, where technology had eliminated most dangers, where survival was guaranteed from birth. "I do not understand," Tay said finally. "If Earth is so dangerous, why do humans stay there? Why not colonize safer worlds?" We do colonize other worlds, Hannah replied. But Earth is home. It made us what we are. Without the challenges it provides, we would become soft and weak. You think other worlds make people soft? Think comfort makes people unprepared for hardship. And the universe is full of hardship. A cadet from a high-tech world bristled. Are you saying that advanced civilizations are weak? I am saying that if you never face real danger, you do not learn how to handle it when it arrives. What kind of real danger? War, natural disasters, resource shortages, hostile alien contact, the collapse of technology, any of a dozen things that could destroy a civilization. Those things rarely happen, the tech world cadet protested. They happen more often than you think. Earth has experienced all of them multiple times. We have learned to survive them. How? By never depending entirely on any one thing. By always having backup plans. By training our people to function even when everything goes wrong. Commander Rexton had entered the dining hall during this conversation. He stood at the edge of the crowd, listening with interest. Finally, he stepped forward. Cadet Kim is correct, he said, his voice carrying authority. Earth has survived disasters that would have destroyed most civilizations. They have faced extinction-level events and recovered. They have rebuilt their society from scratch multiple times. Is that why Earth was invited to join the Galactic Alliance, Kai asked. Partly, but mainly because they bring skills that other species lack. The ability to fight when victory seems impossible. It's the willingness to sacrifice everything to protect what matters. The capacity to adapt to any situation. They sound like ideal soldiers, Rena observed. They are, Commander Rexton agreed. But they are also ideal explorers, engineers, diplomats, and leaders. Death worlds do not just create fighters. They create survivors, and survivors can succeed in any environment. The crowd of cadets was growing larger. Word had spread that the human was explaining her victory, and students from every part of the academy were gathering to listen. Tell us about the fight, someone called out. How did you know where to strike Vorthok? I studied his species, Hannah replied. I learned how Zephyrian armor is constructed, where the joints are, how their muscles attach to their crystal bones. I identified the weak points before the fight began. But how did you move so fast? I did not move fast. I moved efficiently. I did not waste energy on unnecessary movements. Every step, every strike had a purpose, and you predicted his attacks. I observed his patterns. Vorthok fights the way most strong creatures fight. He relies on overwhelming force applied directly. Once I understood his approach, it was easy to counter. Easy, Tay repeated, shaking his head. Now you make it sound simple. It is simple, Hannah said. That does not mean it is easy. Commander Rexton smiled at this distinction. Cadet Kim, you have given these students much to think about. But perhaps we should allow them to process this information gradually. Crowd began to disperse, but many cadets lingered, still full of questions. Hannah answered as many as she could. Her responses always patient and thoughtful. As the evening wore on, one thing became clear to everyone present. The quiet human girl they had dismissed as weak was actually something far more formidable. She was a product of Earth, a death world that had forged her into a warrior without her even realizing it. And if she was an average example of her species, then humanity was going to change the galaxy in ways no one had anticipated. 3 weeks had passed since the fight in the arena. The Academy felt different now, changed in ways both subtle and profound. The easy confidence that many cadets had possessed was gone, replaced by a thoughtful wariness and a new respect for things they did not understand. Hannah had passed all her remaining exams with perfect scores. Her combat performance had been flawless, her tactical knowledge comprehensive, her leadership skills exceptional. She would graduate at the top of her class, a fact that surprised no one anymore. But more importantly, she had changed how the Academy viewed humans and Earth. Requests for information about human combat techniques had increased dramatically. Several cadets had asked to transfer to Earth for advanced training. The library's files on Death World survival tactics were being accessed constantly. Commander Rexton stood in his office, reading reports from across the galaxy. Similar incidents were occurring at other academies and military installations. Humans were proving themselves in combat, in leadership, in crisis situations. The galaxy was beginning to understand what Earth brought to the galactic community. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Enter. Hannah walked in, carrying a small wrapped package. She had requested this meeting, though she had not explained why. Cadet Kim. Please, sit down. Thank you, Commander. She placed the package on his desk carefully. What is this? A gift. For Cadet Vorthok, Commander Rexton raised an eyebrow. What kind of gift? Something from our fight. Something that might help him understand what happened. She unwrapped the package, revealing several pieces of crystal. They were fragments of Vorthok's armor that had broken off during their combat, but these pieces had been carefully cleaned and polished until they gleamed like jewels. You kept pieces of his armor. I collected them during the fight. It is a human tradition. What tradition? It's taking trophies from worthy opponents, but not as symbols of victory. It's reminders of lessons learned. Commander Rexton picked up one of the crystal fragments. It was beautiful, catching the light and throwing rainbows across his desk. What lesson do these represent? That strength and beauty can coexist with vulnerability, that even the hardest materials have breaking points. Understanding your enemy's weaknesses is not the same as despising them. You want to give these to Vorthok. Yes. With an explanation of what they mean to humans and an invitation. What kind of invitation? To train together, to learn from each other. Humans have much to learn about galactic combat techniques. Zephyrians have much to learn about adaptive fighting. You could help each other become better officers. Commander Rexton smiled. This was exactly the kind of thinking that made humans valuable allies. Where others saw only victory and defeat, they saw opportunities for mutual improvement. I think that is an excellent idea. Where is Cadet Vorthok now? In the training bay. He has been practicing constantly since our fight. Practicing what? Speed, adaptability, fighting smaller opponents. He is trying to learn from his defeat. Good. That shows wisdom. Hannah stood up. May I go speak with him? Of course. But Cadet Kim, one more thing. Yes, Commander. After graduation, you will be assigned to a mixed species unit. Your performance here has attracted attention from Fleet Command. They want humans in leadership positions, I understand. Do you? Because what happened here will happen again. We'll face beings who underestimate humans. You will have to prove yourself repeatedly. I'm prepared for that. Are you prepared to train others? To teach them what you have learned? Hannah considered this. If it helps the fleet become stronger, yes, it will. And it will make humans safer in the long run. The more the galaxy understands us, the less likely they are to make dangerous mistakes. Like attacking Earth. Exactly. Hannah picked up the wrapped crystal fragments and headed for the door. Commander, may I ask you something? Of course. Do you think the galaxy is ready for humans? Commander Rexton was quiet for a moment. I think the galaxy needs humans, whether it is ready or not. What do you mean? The galaxy has become comfortable. Most species have eliminated the challenges that made them strong. They rely on technology instead of adaptability, on overwhelming force instead of intelligence. They've forgotten how to struggle. And humans remember. Humans never had a choice but to remember. Earth never let you forget. What happens when a comfortable galaxy meets a species that has never been comfortable? Change, Commander Rexton said simply. Rapid, fundamental change. Hannah left his office and walked through the corridors toward the training bay. Cadets. She passed, nodded respectfully, a far cry from the mockery she had endured months ago. Some smiled, others looked nervous, but none looked at her with contempt. The training bay was nearly empty. Most cadets had finished their exercises for the day. But in the center of the large room, Vorthok was sparring with holographic opponents. The projections were small and fast, forcing him to adapt his fighting style to face more agile enemies. Hannah watched for several minutes as he struggled with the exercise. His movements were still too slow, too predictable. He was trying to learn speed, but he was approaching it wrong. You were thinking too hard, she said finally. Vorthok stopped mid-swing and turned to face her. Hannah, I did not hear you enter. I've been watching you train. You're making progress, but you are focusing on the wrong things. Explain. Speed is not about moving fast. It is about moving at the right time. You are trying to accelerate your attacks when you should be improving your timing. Vorthok deactivated the holographic opponents and walked over to her. Show me. Are you sure? Last time we sparred, it did not end well for you, I'm sure. I need to learn. Hannah activated a new holographic scenario, this one featuring multiple small opponents attacking simultaneously. Watch, she said. She moved into the center of the training area and began fighting the projections. But instead of trying to match their speed, she positioned herself so that their attacks interfered with each other. She used their momentum against them, turning their aggression into weakness. You see, she said as the last hologram dissolved, I did not move faster than them. I moved smarter, timing and positioning instead of raw speed. Exactly, your strength is still your greatest asset, but you need to use it more precisely. Vorthok nodded slowly. Will you help me learn? That is why I came here. She pulled out the wrapped crystal fragments. But first, I have something for you. Vorthok unwrapped the package, his eyes widening as he recognized pieces of his own armor. You kept these? On Earth, warriors take trophies from battles, not to humiliate their opponents, but to remember important lessons. What lesson do these represent? That everyone has weaknesses? That those weaknesses do not make you less valuable as a warrior. That understanding your limitations is the first step to overcoming them. Vorthok held up one of the polished crystal fragments. These are beautiful. Your people create beautiful armor. But beauty and strength are not the same thing. No, they are not. He looked at her carefully. Why are you helping me? You defeated me. By rights, you should be celebrating your victory. Victory means nothing if it does not lead to improvement. For both sides. Both sides. I learned things from our fight too. Your strength taught me that I cannot rely only on speed and technique. Against truly powerful opponents, I need better tactics. And you think we can help each other improve? I think the galaxy is changing. Humans and Zephyrians will serve together in the fleet. We will face enemies that neither of us can defeat alone. Vorthok was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, You are offering partnership. I am offering friendship. It's between warriors who respect each other. Counter what I said about you, about humans, especially after that. You judged based on incomplete information. Now you have better information. The question is, what will you do with it? Vorthok carefully rewrapped the crystal fragments. I will treasure these, and I will accept your offer of training partnership. Good, when do we start? Now, if you are willing. For the next 2 hours, they worked together in the training bay. Hannah taught Vorthok about timing and positioning. Vorthok taught Hannah about using environmental advantages and maximizing impact force. They learned from each other, challenged each other, and slowly began to understand each other. Other cadets began to gather, watching this unlikely partnership with fascination, the human and the Zephyrian. Former enemies now working together to become better warriors. Word spread quickly through the academy. Within days, similar partnerships were forming between species that had never collaborated before. Human approach to learning from defeat instead of being destroyed by it was spreading. Commander Rexton watched these developments with satisfaction. This was exactly what the galaxy needed, a conquest or domination, but cooperation and mutual improvement. Humans were not just bringing their own skills to the galactic community, they were teaching others to develop skills they had forgotten they possessed. In her quarters that night, Hannah wrote a letter to her family on Earth. She told them about the academy, about her training, about the friends she was making among the stars. But most importantly, she told them that humanity was being accepted in the galaxy, not as conquerors or saviors, but as equals who brought unique value to the cosmic community. The morning sun cast long shadows across the metal corridors of the Galactic Military Academy. Cadets from hundreds of different worlds walked through the halls, their voices mixing into a strange symphony of alien languages. Some had scales that glittered like jewels. Others had multiple arms or eyes that glowed in the dark. A few floated instead of walking, their bodies made of energy and light. In the middle of all this alien beauty stood Hannah Kim, looking perfectly ordinary. She was human, which made her strange in a different way. Most of the other cadets had never seen a human before. They whispered when she passed, pointing at her smooth skin and single pair of eyes. Some laughed quietly, wondering how such a plain creature had made it into the most elite military school. In the galaxy, Hannah ignored them all. She'd been doing this for 6 months now, ever since she arrived from Earth. She knew what they thought about her. She knew they called her weak behind her back. She knew they wondered why the Academy had accepted a human at all. The dining hall was the worst place for the staring and whispering. Hannah sat alone at a small table in the corner, eating her breakfast while hundreds of alien cadets filled the enormous room. The food was designed to work for many different species, so it tasted like nothing much. Hannah ate it anyway, chewing. Slowly, and watching the other students at the center table sat the popular cadets, the ones everyone wanted to be friends with. They were tall and strong and beautiful in ways that made other students stop and stare. They came from warrior worlds, where strength was everything. They had been trained to fight since they could walk. The loudest voice at that table belonged to Vorthok. He was from a planet called Zephoria, where the people grew crystals instead of bones. His body was covered in natural armor that could stop laser blasts. His arms were as thick as tree trunks. When he stood up, which he did often, he towered over everyone else in the room. Even the teachers seemed small next to him. Vorthok loved to talk about fighting. He told long stories about battles on his home world, about enemies he had defeated, about weapons he had mastered. Other cadets gathered around him like he was their hero. They laughed at his jokes and agreed with everything he said. This morning, like most mornings, Vorthok was talking about the upcoming final exams. In 3 days, every cadet would face their last combat test, pass, and they would graduate to become officers in the Galactic Fleet. Fail, and they would be sent home in shame. The test will be simple for those of us who come from real warrior worlds, Vorthok said, his voice carrying across the dining hall. We have been preparing for this our entire lives. His friends nodded and smiled. A cadet named Jorik, who had skin like metal and could shoot electricity from his fingers, raised his drink. The future officers of the galaxy. To the strong, added Mira, a female from a world where people could change their shape at will. May the weak be left behind where they belong. The group laughed and clinked their glasses together. The sound was sharp and bright like breaking crystal. From her corner table, Hannah watched this display without expression. She had seen it many times before. These cadets believed that strength came from special abilities, from natural armor, from being born different. They had never learned to fight without advantages. Speaking of the weak, Vorthok said suddenly, his voice getting louder. Has anyone seen our little human friend today? All eyes turned to Hannah. She continued eating, not looking up from her plate. There she is, Vorthok continued, standing up so everyone could see him better. Sitting alone as usual? Tell me, Softskin, are you ready for the combat exam? The dining hall grew quiet. Conversations stopped. Even the teachers at their table turned to watch. Hannah finished chewing her food, swallowed, and looked up. Ready? She said simply. Vorthok laughed, a sound like rocks tumbling down a mountain. Ready? You think you are ready? Do you know what the combat exam involves? A close quarters battle with live weapons, Hannah replied. No safety protocols. Winners advance. Losers wash out. Exactly. And do you know what happens to soft little creatures like you when they face real warriors? Hannah set down her fork. I imagine I will find out. The other cadets began to murmur among themselves. Some sounded excited, like they were watching a show. Others seemed nervous, like they knew something bad was about to happen. Vorthok walked over to Hannah's table, his crystal armor making small clicking sounds with each step. He was so tall that when he stood next to her, she had to crane her neck to look at his face. You are from Earth, he said. They tell us Earth is a death world. But looking at you, I think they made a mistake. You look like you would break if I breathed on you too hard. More laughter from the other cadets. Hannah remained seated, her hands folded in her lap. I have studied the reports about your species, Vorthok continued. Humans are supposed to be dangerous, but you are small and weak and slow. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. You are just meat and bone. That is true, Hannah said quietly. Then why are you here? Why did they send you to train with real warriors? Because someone had to come. Vorthok's crest flared with amusement. Someone had to come. How noble. Wow. Pathetic. Do you really think you can compete with us? You think your soft human body can stand against crystal armor and energy weapons? I think I will do my best. Your best. Vorthok leaned down so his face was closer to hers. Your best will not be enough. In 3 days, when the exam begins, you will face cadets who have been bred for war. You will face creatures who can tear steel with their bare hands. You will face beings who have never known defeat. I understand. Do you? Do you really? Because I do not think you know what you are walking into. I do not think you understand how badly you are going to lose. Hannah looked up at him, her dark eyes meeting his glowing ones. Perhaps you are right. I know I am right. I will prove it to you. When the exam begins, I will make sure we are paired against each other. I will show you exactly what happens when a real warrior faces a pretender. The dining hall was completely silent now. Even the teachers were listening. Hannah stood up slowly, her movement careful and controlled. If that is what you want, she said. Vorthok smiled, showing teeth like broken glass. No, it is what I want. I want everyone to see what happens when a death world sends its weakest child to play with the strong. He turned to address the entire dining hall. 3 days from now, you will all witness something special. You will see exactly why humans do not belong among warriors. You will see why Earth should keep its soft children at home. The other cadets cheered and applauded. Vorthok raised his arms like a champion, soaking in their approval. He had given them a show, and they loved him for it. Hannah picked up her tray and walked toward the exit. As she passed Vorthok, she paused. See you in 3 days, she said quietly. Then she was gone, leaving behind a dining hall full of excited cadets who thought they had just witnessed the setup for an easy victory. None of them noticed the small smile that played across Hannah's lips as she left. She had laughed at the girl from the death world, Hannah wrote, referring to Vorthok's original mockery. But she left holding his bones, and now we trained together as friends. The galaxy was indeed changing, and for the first time since leaving Earth, Hannah felt truly optimistic about humanity's future among the stars. Outside her window, ships from a dozen different worlds traveled between the stars, carrying beings who were slowly learning that strength came in many forms, and that the quiet species from the dangerous world had much to teach them all.